Hey everybody, Riot Mort here with the patch 12.23 rundown, and it's a doozy because we are launching a new set. TFT Monsters Attack is coming live. It's a brand new set which includes a bunch of new champions, traits, rules, and things to enjoy. It's, I think, the best part of being a TFT player. Every 6 months you get a new set, and so here we are. So this video is going to be for people who really didn't play a lot of PvE or look into a lot of PvE. If you've played a lot of that, there's not going to be a lot of new information here. But if you haven't, let's say you've been finishing off Dragonlands and you want to learn all about the new set that's going live, this is going to be the video for you. So with that, let's dive right in and talk about some of the new things coming this patch. So, as with any new set, there's going to be a bunch of new traits. Let's go over some of them. Anima Squad is sort of your influencer heroes that are going to be able to do a pose, get some kills, and stack fame. That fame is going to allow them to get extra health, and that health is going to get pretty high at the end of the game. You can hit like 100 fame or even more than that, giving you your team 600 bonus health. They also get some AD and AP, so generally pretty good. They're going to be centered around something like a Misfortune carry or a Vayne carry. They can do some really cool stuff. Laser Core uses the project skins. It's one of our big traits that allows you to play, you can go 6 Laser Core or even 9 Laser Core if you manage to get some of the augments and emblems that go with it. What they do is they give you a little drone that every time you're hit or attack, you have a 50% chance to shoot a laser. And then when you die, that drone passes off to the nearest ally. So you can get in situations where at the end, you have like a Zed that has 6 drones flying over him, each shooting lasers and doing a bunch of cool stuff. Pretty unique trait. Its flat damage is very good in the early game. So if you can get 3 laser core early or 6 laser core at like level 7, it can do some really cool stuff. And this is a buildable emblem, so it allows you, if you get some spatulas, maybe consider that pretty early. Gadgeteen are sort of the Yordle young heroes of the set. And basically, if you run 3 of them, they'll create a random modified weapon, which is basically a more powerful version of a basic item. And so you can use that, and every turn that'll go away, and you'll get a new item each turn. If you manage to run 5 Gadgeteen, you'll get 2 of these items every turn. These can be really good early. If you run 3 Gadgeteen at like 2-1, you're going to be up an item over everyone else. Pretty good amount of power there. So consider that as kind of an early opener. Star Guardian is back, and so the way Star Guardian works is if you run, say, 5 Star Guardian, your Star Guardians will gain more mana from all sources. This is from attacking, dealing damage, items, augments will give them 70% more mana. So for example, your auto attacks that normally generate 10 will instead generate 17. This can get pretty crazy. They can do a lot of spell casts. It's also surprisingly good on the tanks. If you get like a 7 Star Guardian Echo, he'll repeatedly cast and keep himself very live, being a very good tank. So definitely a really fun trait if you want to build all the Star Guardians and have them work together. And if you can get 9 Star Guardian with, say, like an augment or an emblem, you can triple your mana generation, which is pretty insane. So if you like Star Guardians, definitely be sure to try those out. Ox Force is an interesting trait where the heroes gain a little bit of attack speed, and the lower the health they are, the more attack speed they gain. But right before they're about to die, they'll instead become invincible for 1 second, and that'll save them from health sometimes. Sometimes Alistar will be close to death and then he'll heal up with his spell, or you can get something like a redemption and heal up from that. So they can kind of live and fight along to fight another day. This is another buildable emblem, so you can make some extra Ox Force. It gives you a lot of power. So yeah, definitely try out Ox Force. All right, Underground, probably my favorite trait, and I think a lot of people's favorite trait. Underground, the way it works is once you run 3 Underground, every round you win, those Underground will start a heist and they'll crack 2 locks. You'll see a little sewer on the right that you can dive into. If you lose, you crack 3 locks. And every 10 locks you crack, you'll open a vault. The vault will show you a bunch of rewards. You can take those rewards. For example, your first heist might be an item component and 5 gold. Or you can pass on that and keep going and try to dig to an even better vault and a better vault. All the way up to 7 heists, which can do some pretty insane things. So definitely try to push your luck and see how far you can go, and use that to sort of swing your endgame comp and end up, you know, quite a few items ahead of your opponents. So if you liked things like Fortune or Mercenary in the past, this is going to be a trait I think you'll really enjoy. Civilians is a nice little splash trait. As long as there is a single civilian alive, so for example, if you're running Galio and Sivir, and Galio dies, that's okay. As long as Sivir's alive, your team will generate mana every 2 seconds. So this is just a nice passive mana generation. And this is an example where this can synergize with things like Star Guardian. If you run, let's say, 9 Star Guardian, this will increase, you know, the 4 mana all the way to 12 mana. So definitely something to consider. Civilians are a nice splash, especially in the early game. All right, Mecha Prime. Mecha Prime is a new trait. These big mechanical champions. A little different than the last time Mech was around in Galaxies. The way it works this time is you have 3 mechs, and you'll choose one of them to be your Prime. And they will all merge together into that Prime, and that Prime will get all their health, plus increase their AD and AP. If you have all 5 mechs, 3 of them will combine, and everyone will get a little bit of the benefit. So definitely pretty cool. And you can see what that looks like here. I've got Wukong, Draven, and Jax. Jax is my Prime. You'll have a very clear indicator. And at the start of combat, I'll get a very big Jax that can do a ton of damage. So really cool. You know, you can use them for like a front line with, say, a Set, or a back line with, say, a Draven. It's really up to you. And yes, there is a mech emblem if you can find it. So you can make whatever you want into a mech, which is pretty fun. All right, threats. Threats are one of the big hooks this set. There are 8 threats this set. 3 3 costs, 3 4 costs, and 2 5 costs. Threats don't really have a trait. They have a trait called Threat that does nothing. And this makes them very splashable units. If you just need a tank, throw in a Zac. If you didn't get any anti-heal, you can throw Aurelion Sol into your comp. Each of these champions has a unique output, and then you can just kind of throw them into any of your comps. They generally have a little higher stats, so they're pretty powerful champions. They just can't scale up with their traits because they don't have any traits. And so consider these as very splashable units. I personally like it if you get a Belveth early, playing around that Belveth who can do a ton of damage, but a lot of cool options. Supers is a 3-piece trait that if you like rerolling and playing those like 3-star comps, Supers is probably going to be the comp for you. The way it works is if you play all 3 of them, which is Gangplank, Lee Sin, and Malphite, your team will get 20% bonus damage. That is increased by every 3-star champion you have. So let's say you've 3-starred all of them, that'll be 35%. Let's say you also have a 3-star Blitzcrank next to it. Now it's at 40%. It uses your whole team and works for your whole team. So there's a bunch of cool combinations where you can run like Supers plus Duelist or Supers plus Mech. So a lot of cool options. Give that a try. If you like press and reroll, Supers are for you. A.D.M.I.N. This is a tricky trait. A.D.M.I.N. is a 4-piece trait that activates as soon as you have 2. And you'll notice here it doesn't really say anything other than initialize A.D.M.I.N. cause and effect. That's because you get to pick. Every game, you're going to be offered 3 choices. Every player gets different choices, and it'll be up to you. So for example, you can see here in this example, I could do, at the start of combat, my A.D.M.I.Ns gain 35 AP. On ability cast, my A.D.M.I.Ns gain 12 permanent max health for the rest of the game. And every 5 seconds, my A.D.M.I.Ns gain 20% attack speed. And so I can pick that. And once I make that selection, that's permanent for the rest of the game. So say I put in Blitzcrank and Camille, and I choose combat start, gain 35 AP. Great. Got it. Then, if when I get in 4-piece, it'll ask me to add another effect. So here, it still keeps the same cause. So combat start, either drop a 50% chance to drop gold, 35% health, or gain 50 permanent health. And you can see in this example, we've chosen add permanently gain 50 max health for your A.D.M.I.Ns. So pretty cool. A lot of different combinations here. Build your own trait. Definitely check that out. Pretty fun. Defender. This is your sort of basic armor tanky trait. But what it does is at the start of combat, they'll taunt. So they're good at drawing aggro. 2 defenders will get plus 60 armor and share half of that with the team. So 30 armor for the team. If you're willing to go deep, you can get 160 armor. And if you go really deep with 6 defenders, you can get 400 armor. So if it's ever a very AD meta, you're going to want those defenders in. Spellslinger, kind of the traditional AP class of the game. Basically, every 5 seconds, they'll shoot a little meteor that does a little extra AP damage, and they increase their AP. So pretty cool. If you can manage to get up to 8, those meteors will quadruple in power, so that's pretty fun. Recon, this is sort of your backline traditional trait. Recon innately have +2 hex range. This makes Recon emblem pretty fun in the sense that like you can put it on a Belveth. That Belveth will have +2 range. That can do some cool stuff. It also just gives them some critical strike chance. If you have all 4 Recon, then you have basically 100% crit chance and your abilities can critical strike, which is kind of nice. And then if there's enemies nearby, they will dash away if you have at least the 2-piece active. So kind of cool. Renegade, these are your sort of melee damage dealers a little bit here, especially around things like Talon and Viego. And basically, they'll deal bonus damage. So if you're running 3 Renegade, those 3 Renegades will deal 40% more damage. If the last one alive is there, they'll get even more bonus damage. So say you're running Talon, Camille, and Viego, and Talon and Camille die, Viego will now have another 20% extra damage. So in the case of 6 Renegade, you can end up with a champion that at the end of the fight is sort of 1v9ing with 120% bonus damage. So it makes for some pretty cool combos. And Renegade is a buildable emblem, so definitely check that out. All right, Mascot. This is an interesting tanky trait. Basically what they do is they will heal over time. So they've got a passive healing regen. They give it to your whole team, though. So let's say you're running 4 Mascot. Your whole team is healing 3.25% of their health per second, or every 2 seconds, excuse me. The Mascots get double that, though. So like the Malphite in your team will get 6.5% healing every 2 seconds. Then as they die, instead of disappearing, they'll actually run off to the side of the map and start cheering you on. It's actually kind of adorable. And for each one cheering on the side, this will increase by another 1%. So again, let's say you're running 4 Mascot and Galio and Nasus have died. That'll put you at 5.25% healing, doubled to 10.5 for the Malphite that's still in the game. So yeah, it does some pretty cool stuff there. Prankster is a fun little splash trait that once per combat at 50% health, they'll spawn a target dummy and sort of get out of there real quick. They'll heal a little bit, and that target dummy will be there. And if you're running 3, anyone who attacks that target dummy and kills it will actually get stunned for 1.5 seconds. There's some pretty cool things you can do with this. I've seen people run like frontline Jinx and then have it back away for the Prankster dummy. So kind of cool. Brawler is back, but with a little bit of a twist. Brawler normally has been flat health in the past. This time it is percent health. So for example, if you're running 2 Brawler Blitzcrank and then you put a Warmogs on him, instead of 1,000 health, you'll get 1,200 health. So you can get some pretty big health numbers here. If you can get all the way up to 8 Brawler, that's plus 111% maximum health. If you like getting big health bars, Brawler's the trait for you. Can also scale well if you want to like re-roll Blitzcrank or use A.D.M.I.N to get that permanent health. That permanent health will then scale with Brawler and can do some pretty cool stuff. Heart is an interesting ability, and yes, there is an augment called Heart, don't worry. But the way it works is every time a Heart unit casts, the whole team gets AP. So let's say you're running 2 Heart and Yumi casts the spell, the whole team gains 4 AP. Pretty cool. So when you're running 6 Heart and they're all casting their spell, if they've each cast once, 6 times 9, your whole team just gained 54 AP. This can do some pretty wonky stuff. Zoe, for example, who has a 30 mana spell, give her a blue buff, give her a Heart emblem, you'll be stacking that AP like crazy. So Heart, definitely another one of the more interesting AP comps, but more built around quick casts rather than slower casts like Spellweaver. All right, Hacker. Hacker's an interesting one in that when you put in Hacker, you will see a Hackerim, a Trojan horse, rainbow Hackerim, if you will. And you can put one unit in that to sort of Trojan horse to the other side and attack the backline. In addition, your Hackers will gain some Omnivamp. So what's really good to do is say put in Zoe plus Zed, put Zed in the Hackerim spot, have that Zed go into the backline. So if you were missing assassins, this is your way to kind of get that assassin. It's like send one key unit to the backline. You can also send back tanks. I'm a big fan of like sending back a tank with a Sunfire, apply that burn to the backline and get some backline disruption going. So a lot of cool ways you can play around Hacker. Aegis. Aegis is sort of the turn on Mystic this time. It's going to give your team magic resist and them extra magic resist, very much like Defender as well. You'll probably be playing a lot of this because a lot of these champions are very good in the end game. Echo is a very good tank. Leona can do a lot of utility in tank, and then you'll find things like Annie plus Alistar, good combos. So expect to be playing a lot of Aegis, and it helps with a lot of the magic damage in the end game. Sure Shot is your traditional AD champions. You'll see a lot of this one, especially because Samira and Aphelios work together really well. But the way it works is at the start of combat and every 4 seconds, they gain more AD. So if you can have a really solid front line and then like a Samira and Aphelios, they can gain, 20 seconds into the fight, 60% attack damage, and that's a lot of extra power for a 2-piece trait. So Ace is an interesting trait. You can only have 1 or exactly 4. If you have 2, the trait turns off. If you have 5, the trait turns off. If you have 1, the Ace can execute enemies under 12% health. So if you remember the item like the Collector, they'll execute and do true damage and delete them from the team. If you're willing to run 4, that execute happens at 30% health, and lowering your enemy's team health by about 30% is very strong. So if you can pull off 4 Ace, it's hard because you have to hit 2 4 costs and a 5 cost, but also there's emblems out there, so consider that. But yeah, Ace is pretty cool. And finally, the last trait to talk about is Duelist. Duelist is back for those who remember it from previous sets. Duelists have slightly increased movement speed, so they can dash around. A lot of melee sword fighters here, with the exception of Vayne. And basically the way it works is every time they attack, they get a little bit of extra attack speed, up to 10 stacks. So for example, if you're running Gangplank and Kale, Kale attacks 10 times, now has plus 60% attack speed, which is a lot of attack speed for a 2-piece trait. Go all the way up to 8, where you can get like 300% attack speed. It can do some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, Duelists are back. So that's all the traits. Here are some of the champions. I'm not going to go over all of their abilities. Hopefully you guys have fun. Try them all out. But lots of really cool champions here. Some favorites of mine, Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is back, but he doesn't have a grab. He's just a really solid tank. So definitely be on the lookout for him. Let's see. Renekton's also another really good frontline. He kind of bulks up and then does damage based on his health. So some pretty cool stuff there. And Talon, if you really are having trouble dealing with, say, the enemy's Ashe, Talon can cast his spell, which causes him to jump to the backline and do one big, burst of magic damage. So consider that for taking out opponents' backline that they think are safe because there's no assassins. On the 2-cost side, again, a lot of champions here, some pretty cool stuff. Pizza Delivery Sivir, I think kind of a funny one, who throws her pizza, which does some AD damage, and then the pizza splits apart and heals nearby allies, which is kind of fun. Jinx has got her AoE rocket, if you remember that from previous sets. So a lot of really cool stuff here. Yuumi, who can kind of snipe backline kind of annoyingly. Yuumi more of a carry this time rather than a support. But yeah, some pretty cool stuff here. Vi is also going to be a very popular champion because of her traits. And you'll notice there's a lot of 3-trait champions. This allows you to expand the trait web in a lot of really interesting ways. But Vi in particular will like synergize with Brawler or Underground in the early game, and then transition to working really well with Aegis in the late game. So Annie's kind of similar. Annie will go pair really well with Gadgettine in the early game, and then some Oxforce all the way into Spellslinger in the late game, giving you that powerful AP comp. So a lot of cool ways to use the traits here. On the 3-cost side, this is where you start to get your carries, as well as some of the really cool threats here. So for example, Jax is a really good champion to make the mech. Does more and more damage every time he autos 3 times, and that can do a ton of damage. Zoe, a personal favorite of mine, the blue buff dot champion of the set. Give her like a blue buff and a gunblade, and a Morello, and you can toss around that dot and heal your front line. But yeah, then we have our first 3 threats, and you can see here Cho'Gath, who has incredibly high magic resist and actually shoots a laser out of his mouth. It's pretty cool. Rammus, who has very, very high armor, so if you just need a solid frontliner with like a bramble vest, throw in Rammus, can do some cool stuff. And then Vel'Koz, probably one of the more annoying champions in the set. Vel'Koz will target whoever's done the most damage and stun them for 2 seconds and apply a little damage. So if you're having trouble with like a backline Ashe doing too much damage, just lock them down with a Vel'Koz. So yeah. And then we enter the 4 costs, and this is where you start to see some of the really cool endgame stuff you're going to run into. Also, this is the most 4 costs we've ever had in the set. Normally it's either 10 or 11. This time we did 12. So it will be a little harder to 2-star these champions, but if you can, the power-up is very much worth it here. So that you've got things like Aurelian's Soul, who drops down meteors, which is really cool, and applies Morello built in. Talia, who does her big wall that does a bunch of AoE damage. And then Samira, who shoots a bunch of AD bullets, and those bounce around, which can trigger Ace, which can be really cool. And then one of my personal favorites is Zac. Zac doesn't do a ton. His spell's not that impactful. It does scale with HP, so if you give him like a Warmogs, that's cool. But what's really cool about Zac is when he dies, he splits into 2 copies that are 40% of his health. So if you have like 2 Warmogs on Zac, who has like 3,000 health, you're getting 2 extra, 1,300 health clones that can do a lot. And so a lot of really fun stuff in here. I think you'll see a lot of set mech frontlines as well, especially in the mid game when he's really strong. Soraka's actually a carry now, not a support. So yeah, give those a try. And then finally we have the 5 costs. Again, going to try to keep some of that for you to try it out. But some really cool, interesting ones to talk about here. Aphelios. When you put Aphelios in, you'll actually have a choice of 3 guns, each gun with a different purpose, and you can choose whichever one is right for you. Purple gun, for example, is a stun if you don't have any items, but then you can put in like the red gun if you have a bunch of items, and that'll do the most damage to a big frontliner, so that's pretty cool. Janna is a forecaster, and so based on the weather, which is different each game, there's 3 different types of weather: windy, sunny, and rainy. Everyone around her will benefit from the weather. So you can see, for example, rainy will give everyone nearby her starting mana. So let's say you have a Talia, you want to get that first cast off, put a Janna next to it, get that rainy bonus, and have that go. Plus, Janna just has a good AoE stun, which is good, and is a civilian, which means you get that passive mana regen as long as she's alive. Some other ones here, Leona. If you run into a super tank, Leona can bring down a satellite laser and take them out. Mordekaiser drops a frickin' building on people. If you haven't seen that yet, just give it a try. You'll really enjoy that. Nunu pushes around a giant snowball. It's pretty hilarious. Syndra can summon people from your bench. If you played around from Galaxies, very much like Thresh back then, but can summon in. And what's really good is that works with threats. So you can like summon in Zacs, and then those Zacs can clone more Zacs, and you get a bunch more frontline. And then finally, Fiddlesticks, who the longer he stays alive, he drains AP from his allies, and then can do a big AoE and kind of turn around a 1v9. And then finally, Urgot, an AD champion that summons tidal waves, and sometimes those tidal waves will find some buried treasure. So a lot of really fun champions. It's a very interesting and flexible set, so give it a try. I think you'll be surprised at how many things you can pull off with all the different comps. Now, that's it for champions and traits, so now we got to talk mechanics, and I'll try to go through this pretty quickly. There are some things that have changed in TFT you should be aware of. First off, we had this inconsistency for a long time where if you had a physical damage spell, it could crit without like a jeweled gauntlet, but it could also be dodged, which was really weird. If you remember like having your Xayah do her pullback and it just would get dodged because somebody had a Quicksilver. That was weird. Now all spells work like magic spells. They can't be dodged, they can't miss, but they won't be able to crit unless you have something like a jeweled gauntlet. So this means all spells now work the same way, should hopefully be much more consistent and easier to understand. Grievous Wounds has been lowered from 50% to 33%, so it's not as much of a hard counter before. If there's a strong healer on the team, you're still going to want that anti-heal. It's just not going to shut them down quite as hard as you were used to. Champion power is up, base power. Item power has gone down. What this really means, and you won't notice it too terribly, but basically it's going to mean that 1-star champions with 3 items aren't going to dominate 2-star champions with 2 items or 1 item like they did before. You're really going to want to find those star upgrades, and star upgrades are going to be the key to playing a strongest board. One other change not listed here, but I wanted to verbally say it, is that player damage has gone up by 1 in stage 3, 4, 5, and 6. This does mean the tempo of the game can be a little more accelerated. It does mean you can't just kind of easy loss streak through stage 3 into stage 4. You're going to have to watch your health so you don't get knocked out before stage 4, 7. And then finally, stage 4, 7, 5, 7, and 6, 7, there's no treasure dragon anymore, has been replaced with boss battles. Boss battles are still kind of loot pinatas, nothing too crazy. You're not usually going to lose to these boss battles unless it's an Aurelian soul and you're scared of it. But these boss battles will drop anvils. Anvils are a really cool thing that are going to help with that end game variance. There was nothing worse than, say, fighting a dragon and you're playing an AP comp and you get a Deathblade while your opponent gets a Shroud. It was really painful. Now these anvils will appear, opening up an armory where you can pick from one of 5 choices and make sure you get the right thing here. So if you're playing an AP comp, yeah, there's a Deathblade there, but thankfully you can take the Death Cap or the Ginsus or whatever you need. So give that a try. And then the big mechanic. So augments are still around, of course, but now there are a thing called Hero Augments. Hero Augments will show up once per game, usually. About 95% of games will have a Hero Augment. And the way Hero Augments work is they're centered around a champion. Now, everybody sees them at the same time. So in this game, everyone saw them at 2-1, and everyone saw a 1 cost and 2 costs. Cool. These Hero Augments give you certain powers. Some of them can turn champions into like hardcore carries. For example, you can see Kingslayer here makes Silas, who's normally much more tanky, quite a bit more damage based and, you know, can be a carry. Others are much more utility based. You can see here Zoomies just gives your team 20% attack speed and movement speed. So that's, you know, a good team thing. And so the challenge is figuring out how you want to play around these and how to flex them. So definitely check those out. There are 118 Hero Augments, so you'll be exploring these for quite a while. Some of them do some pretty interesting things. Some of them are pretty easy to use, like, say, Zoomies or Burning Spirit here. So check them out, and you'll know what everyone's chosen because they've got that hero indicator on the champion that you can see here on Silas. In addition, we have more than 180 augments that are returning. There aren't any new ones this time, just some balance adjustments to various augments across the board. The other thing to call out is that there are no trait-specific augments at this time, so you're not going to see like a penitence that makes your Jade Idols do this for mech or anything like that. All the augments are fairly generic. Most of the specific stuff is built into the Hero Augment system, so you're going to see a lot of flexible augments and things like that. But between the Hero Augments and the base augments, there's a lot of different combinations. So hopefully you'll be exploring this for quite a long time, quite a lot of different possibilities here. Finally, let's talk about some item updates real quick. I'm not going to go over every single item change, but there's 2 things you should be aware of, and then a couple small ones. So first thing, BF Sword is now, instead of flat 10 AD, it is plus 10% AD percent. So if you're a 50 AD champion, instead of going to 60, you'll go to 55. What this means is basically, beforehand, all that mattered for getting AD was high attack speed. If you had high attack speed, you wanted to give them AD items like Deathblade. Now, if you have high AD, you want these AD items, so it becomes much more intuitive. So your Samiras and Aphelioses of the world actually are going to want Deathblade. So just a kind of a change there to make the item system more intuitive. And then finally, Sparring Gloves. We finally got rid of the dodge. No more 10% dodge built into a glove or 5% dodge. Now Sparring Gloves are just crit. These are the items you get if you want to do more crits. So no more unlucky dodge. So from there, if you look at some of the items, the values have mostly gone down or shifted. Some of them have had their identities gone a little bit. For example, Zephyr now gives some bonus attack speed so that you don't feel as bad about slamming it early. Dragon's Claw is much less MR, but now has the passive health regen. Every 2 seconds, regenerate 5% maximum health. So this is going to allow you to be a little more happy building this in the early game where there's much more physical damage than magic damage. So that should help that. And then a few other items I wanted to cover. One item has been replaced. Banshee's Claw is gone. This was belt plus glove and is now Guard Breaker. This is sort of a generic AD and AP item that can do extra damage against shields. So if your opponent has a shield, you'll gain a 30% damage buff. The nice thing about this item to realize, though, is like if you need crit, this is a really good item because now it's also giving that plus 20% crit. So if you want to build a 100% crit rate build, Guard Breaker's a very good item for both AD and AP. Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet are now basically the same item, just the AD and AP equivalent. Infinity Edge is going to grant that 25% AD. Jeweled Gauntlet is going to grant that 25 AP. But they both make it so that your ability can crit. Now, if you're in a pickle, let's say you're running a Talia and all you have is an Infinity Edge, it's okay. You're going to be down 25 AP, but you can still get your ability to crit. So don't feel bad if you have to put the wrong one on the wrong style champion, but it should be kind of clear. The reason I also call this out is IE plus Jeweled Gauntlet was a combo for a long time. It's not that good anymore. You're wasting a lot of the value by building these items together. So just be aware that you should probably keep those separate. Blue buff has changed very slightly. It now lowers your mana by 10 and then gives you 10 mana if you get a takedown. The reason I call this out is because it's still going to work on the same style champions, these low mana champions, but it does stack with the augment blue buff, for example, and it does work with things like Shojin that has also changed a little bit. So just consider that, blue buff is a little bit more flexible than it was before. And then finally, the last one I'll call out here is Protector's Vow. Protector's Vow generally gave sort of a team buff before. Now it is a much more selfish item. Really good for champions that you want to be tanky and cast quickly, like, say, Sejuani. But basically, it grants a little bit of starting mana, and then once per combat gives them a shield and a bunch of armor and MR when that procs. So it's no longer the fancy team give armor and MR, so just consider that. So that's a few of the item changes. Like I said, there's a lot of them, but generally, most of the items beyond that are just the same with slightly different numbers or slight variations. Finally, Double Up. Some changes have been made to Double Up, so if you're a big Double Up fan, definitely give that a try. There are new things called Gift Armories. Gift Armories can appear 3/5, 3/6, and then 5/2, 5/3. One's for you, one for your partner. And now they have much more varied options. There's always 3 options. 2 of the options will cost gold, 1 will be free, and it's up to you to pick what you want. There's a lot of interesting things here. You can see random radiant item, tactician's crown, do some pretty wild stuff. So give it a try if you're a big fan of Double Up. Let us know what you think, and hopefully it's a much more interesting version than the Assist Armory. So yeah, and that's it. Obviously a lot of really cool cosmetics as well. You've got the new Battle Pass. I'm a big fan of the Baron. You've got Star Guardian Baron pictured here. Just a lot of really cool things if you're interested in that. The new board we've got is really cool if you're a big fan of Star Guardian. So yeah, a lot of really cool stuff. It's a big patch, a lot of changes, but this is the best time to be a TFT player. If you're looking for something new, it's a great time to dive in. If you're looking to introduce your friends to a game, this is the time to get them in where everyone starts on the same page, start that ranked climb, and enjoy the set. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me and the whole team. On behalf of everybody who worked on it, we all hope you're very excited for TFT Monsters Attack, and yeah, goes live really soon or already. So all right, that's gonna do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.